Hey Alpha fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Just a quick update on the volatility index. So we do see here that it does look like it's retested the trend line that it had been following up while volatility was kind of skyrocketing, causing all sorts of turmoil in the market. And as it's now broken down with a lot of the issues related to the Fed and the Biden executive order and all these different things in the market, well, of course, that's related to crypto, but this is the S&P. But just a lot of the markets are starting to settle down and understand that maybe there was a little bit too much volatility in how they were reacting. And so we are having relief rallies as this volatility kind of goes down. But it doesn't mean that we're out of the woods yet. This world does seem to be a little bit more chaotic than the ideal circumstances down in this region. And so if we do start just turning around or bouncing, it would probably be in this area that I've marked off right here. Somewhere just around where we are. You can see a bunch of these wicks just in this area. And so there's kind of a platform here, and then maybe we could go a little bit lower to get a nice push, but you might expect that this volatility will eventually try to turn around again. All of these volatility bulls have kind of pumped up at some point. A lot of them came down to the bottom of a curve, and when they came to that bottom of the curve, they just popped up. So you might even expect like a dramatic pop up. Look at this, a steep fall, kind of curving at the bottom. It doesn't complete the curve, it doesn't complete the bowl, it pops up, right? So, you know, fall, making a curve, not completing the curve, popped up. And of course, there's these type of, areas where it could come back down and then curve back up. We saw that right here, just to kind of lay it out, where you had that, curve down, pop up, came back down. Everyone thought, oh, volatility was going down. But nope, it popped back up above the critical region. So this is the kind of W formation, the kind of danger that I'm just looking at in this area. As you can see, the low volatility was average even lower back in these years. This is 2008, 2019. And of course, the market seems to have a higher tolerance for volatility in the past few years, ever since COVID. Just the markets have been a little bit more volatile, right? Well, we are popping up from there, but we're having that pullback, and the question is, are we going to catch a little bit higher area? See, this caught it down here, but this was also lower, right? The center of this, the stability area was a little bit lower. And so it's almost by the same amount. That's why I would just give a little bit of warning. We're entering kind of a relative area where we might see a pullback up into volatility. And if you do see volatility increasing again, don't be too surprised and kind of have your game plan. For right now, we do see that, we've just kind of retested this trend line, and now we're kind of sitting on that line that I actually marked out. I didn't use this. I used, some wicks back here, but yeah, this might actually find some support. And so we're just going to take a look at that. Of course, that's bad because if volatility rises again, that means that crypto is likely to suffer. Okay, so as long as this volatility is coming back down, then we have a much higher chance of pumping than if it's going up. And let's take a look at some of these other volatilities. The Russell, kind of that same thing going on here. You know, just this kind of consolidation, which, they tend to have these little bunches. You see those little bunches, right? Don't really know how else to describe it. Just this kind of like consolidation area. This is one, this is one, this is one, this is one. They're all kind of the same size. You can see these higher lows and, you know, higher highs. And so as this volatility has trended up, these little patches for the local trends can be either up or down. And it looks like, maybe we could put one in like around here, right? And then possibly shoot back up. Maybe make something like this. Like if this is the area that we're in, like right here, right? Swoop down, pop up. Don't really rise to this height. Just kind of swoop up, get that maximum height, and then we start coming down. And then you make this low, right? Because this is your high, and then you make this low. So we made a high, and then probably we're going to make a low. And then after those, you tend to have these huge pumps. So just something to be aware of. We're not really 100% sure where we are. It's just you can see that whenever you have this highest one, because these ones are all trending down, right? Trending down, trending down, right? But when you have this higher one, that's kind of like a poke up, and then you get to this kind of highest point, then the next one after that spikes, right? So this one, yeah, this one maybe was a little bit more complicated, but it did spike after this low, and then shortly it did a huge spike. But you can see that pattern kind of repeats, right? You get this kind of high, and then you fall down, and then you get a even higher high. So if a volatility does come back up, after kind of consolidating in this area, don't be too surprised. That may suggest that we have a little bit of time for a reprieve. Here you can see the NASDAQ just it's catching some support on this level, actually. It didn't go back into that very stable area. It's just kind of catching support on it. So that bull shape is being preserved. And when that happens, right, this bull shape is being preserved right here. Then it puts in another one and just kind of pumps up. So we're just on the lookout for this, just in case volatility shoots up. Spent enough time on that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the BTC chart, because Bitcoin does drive everything in this market these days. And, we're just in the same spot. Just in the same spot that we've been in for so long. Nothing really new going on. So the cool thing that I mentioned is that, let me turn the log off. The cool thing that I mentioned is that we are kind of like following this pattern where we've stuck a toe into the water up here just to see what the temperature is. Fell back down, kind of retesting it. So we're sort of like right here, if you want to think about it as a, as kind of an analogy. Personally, I think this formation is more like this formation, just inverted, which is actually a good sign, because that would suggest that sooner or later we're gonna, if this is pumped down, then if this isn't the inversion of this one, it means that we might just pump up, right? So again, my bias is pretty neutral these days. I started off really bullish in these areas. I was just making calls, which I really shouldn't be making calls, but I was just making calls like, buy here, and, actually buy here, right? Buy here and buy here, and making these calls, and they worked out really well. But we got into this area of choppiness, and it just made me think, okay, there's a possible capitulation coming in, sort of like this may happen. And then, of course, if you've seen the rest of my videos, then you know that I've analyzed just, our chances of getting down. 25,000, 18,000, even 14,000 is on the table. I do not believe that we could go under 14,000. It's theoretically possible, but realistically, maybe 25,000, right? Which isn't too far away. Like we pump up 10,000, we drop 10,000 all the time. right, on the Bitcoin chart for the last year or so. So 10,000 wouldn't be that big of a deal. We were what? Like, I mean, 25,000 wouldn't be that big of a deal. We were, 35,000 around here. So that's just 10,000 down. What are we up here? 45,000? That's just 10,000 up. People think dropping down to 25,000 is super scary, but we've been through this. We've been through these ups and downs. If we fall to 25,000, that's not as big of a deal as you think. It's just going to reload the rocket fuel so we can shoot up, for the rest of the year and just keep going, right? It would actually be really good, a really good chance to buy. And so because it's not really that big of a deal that we do it, it's just something that Bitcoin tends to do in the past that's had these type of capitulations. It's something that we should be aware of. But can we also break back into this zone and just pop up? Yeah, I've already shown you how we can do that. You can go ahead and take a look at that video, the ultra bullish possibility for Bitcoin and the crypto market. But what we really need to do is get fully into this channel. We're not there yet. Just wanted to update you on that because I'm not sure that all of you are using TradingView. Some of you might be new and wondering if that fall was, super scary or something. But no, it's not super scary. We're in the area that I was pointing out the other day. What I'd really like to see is us get above this kind of midline in this chart. And if we can sit up here above $46,000, then probably we're going to be on this side of the channel, and we're also going to be on this half of the chart. And that suggests that we could, have a really good chance of, at least climbing to the mid 50s, maybe even like 70,000 bucks, right? So that's what I would be looking forward to. This whole range is just like, 3,000 bucks right here, 4,000 bucks. So it's not that big of a deal to be worrying about. You're not going to miss out on anything if you're not in all your positions yet. I do suggest that you highly think about your positions while you're in this low area because technically this is our support and this is our kind of resistance area, right? So you don't want to be necessarily buying in up here. Like if we cross $46,000, in my opinion, like anything that you're doing is probably super risky because we could easily come back down and just you'd be underwater, right? And again, when I was calling like to buy in here and to buy in here on this kind of like back test, right? The whole point was to get into this low zone, the super low zone on this chart. You can kind of imagine, right, the buy zone that we have here. Kind of buy in this area at the super nice levels. And, your ultimate goal would be to, hold at least something in case, eventually we get into this type of an area, right? And then you can sell those things up here and make a lot of money. And if you ever have the chance to, buy in when we're down here, like at 20 or 25,000 bucks, then even better, right? Then even better. And if we break above 70,000 bucks, even better, right? To sell there. So you don't ever want to sell everything, and you don't want to, buy everything at just one level. You can have some cash on hand, and you always want to be a little bit in the market. But again, once we get above this midline, it's probably not, this becomes riskier and riskier the higher up you buy. So if you bought at support down here, that was a great play. Good for you. I mean, if you could stomach that, you had no confirmation whatsoever that we were going to stop. Anyone who bought at 32,000, 33,000, I mean, they literally just bought a falling knife. Like that's not necessarily wise. That's just it's kind of like gambling. But I mean, you know, great catch. Great catch. You caught the knife, in your teeth. You know, you caught the falling knife by using your teeth. So risky play because we could have just kept going down. But at the same time, these are still all relatively good areas to be buying in, right? So when we did make that higher low, that was all the confirmation you probably needed to have, that this in general was a nice support area. And also we're in this kind of super low region of the overall chart. And so even if we do, fall back down, we made a low. And so we're probably going to have to put in a high eventually anyway, right? Because this was a low. So we would eventually have to put in a high. And whether it was a lower high or a higher high didn't really matter. The fact is we made a low, so we had to make a high, which means you definitely would have a chance to sell. And then when we came back down, we made a higher low. And so that's why I was suggesting, because this was our previous low, so we made a higher low. So I was suggesting just buy here, just long it. Because when are you going to get a better chance? Right? I mean, we didn't keep falling down, just like we didn't keep falling down here. So we made a higher low. So what should you expect next? You should expect a high, and we did. We made a high, right? We made another high. And then we came down here, and we stopped falling. So what do? You can buy in at these lows, right? And they're higher lows also. So we're actually moving up in the chart. The only thing is that we started butting our head on this diagonal. Couldn't break through it here, couldn't break through it here, couldn't break through it here, couldn't break through it here. And so now we're getting into this area where it's just not that great to be buying because you don't know if we're going to get smashed down to the bottom of this, and you don't know if we're going to get pumped up, into this channel, right? In which case, this also is acting as resistance. You can see resistance, 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 you know. And so, this is basically like 1 unit of distance that we could come up here and have resistance versus like almost 3 times as much that we could fall or more, right? To that 25,000 that's possible. And so it's not necessarily the best gamble. However, this diagonal also has been pretty supportive. Let me see, what else do I have here? Yep. Like this diagonal right here has been pretty supportive. So you could consider it 1-to-1. In other words, this is kind of the last area to buy if you're super bullish. If you're bearish, then you just need to make sure that you have all your stop losses in order and that you really understand your buy-in game plan. Because when are you going to buy, right? Like Bitcoin's not going to zero, so when are you going to buy? If you didn't buy here, and you didn't buy here, and you didn't buy here, and you didn't buy here, or here, or here, and you don't buy here, then when are you going to buy? Well, we just had a really great pullback. And I was telling you, like, as long as we didn't break below, I believe 39,000 or 40,000, I was saying, right? This one right here, yep, 40,000. As long as we didn't break below this wick right here, then whatever low we put in is a higher low. And so you can buy that as soon as we stopped falling. You could just buy it and then just sell it wherever the next high is put in. And maybe that's right here. You don't know. Maybe we don't go any higher. Maybe we fall again. But anyway, because we stopped falling and we have to put in a high next, your stop loss can be here, or you can set your stop loss here, and you're relatively safe, right? So the one thing that we want to try to do though is get above this this $42,000 area. We just haven't been able to really break through it. And while these local supports, we kind of crashed through that. So people got really scared, but that was good that they were collecting their liquidity. People thought we were going to stop at this line. Even I thought, right? This support here, this support here. And above that, we had higher support actually, like on this trend and this right here on that trend. So here and here. So these 3 trends were actually our support that we could count on. And we did wick down below it, scaring a lot of people, right? So let's say that people had this same trend line in mind, right? Because we all did. That's just the data that we have. Like we all share the same data. And so the market makers kind of like wick lower because they know you're not going to put your stop loss right at the trend because you can always have little wicks lower. So They just tried to figure out how to like liquidate a lot of people. And then they went up, right? And now what we're finding is that we ran into this diagonal resistance. The last time I was showing you these charts, I was showing you this diagonal that we have to bust through, and we're starting to bust through it. And by busting through it, we also are getting back on top of this diagonal, which is good because we don't want to be falling out of this zone, right? This area, not counting this lower one, this area is kind of like the next channel up. And getting into that next one is really what you want to do, and then getting into the one above that is the ultimate goal. Because every time we get into this one that touches the purple line, like you're able to get to the top of this channel that's above us. But if you just play around in this first level, then you can easily get rejected. See, rejected here, rejected here. You know, originally, you know, this was rejected. And it wasn't until it got to the second level that it really got to find support. So this level is actually really good support. I should actually mark that one as the thick line. And this one can just be kind of like a weaker one that you can, a porous one that you can fall through. And this one should be actually pretty thin because it's just like the entry, you see. It's kind of like the overhead resistance. It resists us, resist, 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 resist. And then we really get resisted by this thick one up here. Like that's the one that just slaps you down. But this whole area has been pretty resistant to us. And our goal is to get on top of it and use it as support. If we can do that, and then we can get over this yellow line. So my friend Retta, like he talks about it in terms of bosses. Usually he's talking about, you know, horizontal supports, but in my case, I'm talking about diagonal supports. So your first boss is just going to be to get into this zone, just into this area, and be able to hold it and break through that yellow, just really micro resistance, right? So we able to get above here and just get a foot, our toe into the water again. And if the water temperature is okay, then hopefully we can, you know, get a swim into this channel above us. And then we have to defeat this boss, this really strong, you know, resistance right here, and use it as support. And if, like my friend Retta says, if we defeat that boss, then we have the next boss, and that one's kind of the final boss because if we can get up here, then we can actually work our way to the top of this channel, and that can take us to 55,000 bucks because we could potentially get on top of it, right? But there might be resistance somewhere around 49 or something. Just if we go by like this wick right here, you can see this mid channel is pretty significant. So, you know, we have a lot of resistance here, 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 and here. And then if we get to this top one, you know, perhaps we can poke out of it bullishly, maybe to 55 or something, before we get slapped back down or come back and retest this, probably retesting this yellow line. And so this is the game plan I'm still working on. I didn't want to leave you guys, you know, because we've been kind of paying close attention to this kind of wedge that we have going on. And we are starting to work our way out of it into this channel above us. And so, you know, if we can do that, then, you know, we might be able to swim to the top of that channel. Let me just make these ones similar. Kind of had a mid channel there, you see, just little interactions. And this one kind of, poked up to this yellow line, got slapped down, got into the mid channel, got a hold of it, but got slapped down by this line. Sort of just like what we're doing right here, right? And when it was able to sit on that dark green line, then it could come up to the yellow pretty easily and just cut through the purple. So that's what we're looking to do. Looking to get above that, bold green line, maybe test the yellow, retest the green, and then like cut through this channel. That'd be really bullish. If not, we might get slapped down again, just like right here. Let me turn off these local lines. Because you can see right here, very similar to this area, right? Oops. Put that with those ones. Okay. Yep. So just like these, this area, we could get slapped down. See, in this case, we did actually have a similar thing. We popped up here, broke down again, tested this kind of thin line, popped all the way up to the yellow, retested this, bounced back up to the midline, and then crashed down. So that's what we have to watch out for. Just, we popped up, retested, popped up, retested again, fell down, and we're just trying again. But it's really difficult. It's really difficult. This diagonal is just very difficult. I don't know why this can't just be copied parallel, but there is kind of a mid in this one also. You can kind of see it here, and here, and up here. I can make this one kind of gray. Because it's kind of like one of these lines. There's like extra lines down here, holding these prices back under a certain level where they get reflected down. Something like that. Yeah, that makes more sense. This one's a little bit more compact than this one. But yep, just checking in with you guys in case any of you thought that we were just falling like crazy. We're not. And also, this formation might look a little bit like this formation in terms of how it's hooking and coming over. And then these formations might look a little bit like the choppiness of this formation, but I wouldn't get too distracted by that stuff. This is just making its own price action. And so really what we're looking for is to get into this zone again and pop back up, right? So, again, a lot of people, including myself sometimes, are just making the comparison of like, the previous summer where you had this type of thing going on and then you popped up. And maybe we'll eventually do something like that, right? Where maybe we do capitulate down here and then come up. Maybe even we capitulate down here and then we come up, right? But until we actually have any evidence that we're breaking down that way, which for me would be under that $40,000 level, and then under this $37,000 level. So if we zoom in here, because these are numbers that you'll probably hear a lot of, different people talking about in crypto, and you may wonder where these numbers are coming from. But this is just like a previous low right here, right? So $40,000. If we get lower than the previous low, then we're in a downtrend. And maybe you could consider this whole area kind of like a local high, right? And so, if you included that in it, then maybe this low, which is like 39,000, or this one, which is like 37,000, right? And, lower than that, we're obviously coming lower because this is just a kind of a big empty space down here, right? You can see how we fall when we get below this type of support area. So 37,000 is kind of like you're going to break your neck after that. And 40,000, you could almost expect to be coming to retest these lows down here. So the fact that we held on to that is really bullish. The fact that we broke down from this area is not the most bullish because you can see what happens, right? We break down from this area and then we keep falling down. And so just, again, keep your eyes open on the markets and, don't get too cocky, that we're pumping back up. Keep in mind that while we do have a downtrend that we might be breaking in terms of these little local trends, we can walk down this or break down again, right? And so you just want to see how we interact, especially with this level that's been proving so difficult here at 42,000. Whether we can keep a hold of this level at 41,000. Like we really want to keep a hold of 41,000. And hopefully we can break above 42,000. And then the next one is this kind of 43,000. And then, that would probably be 43,500. And then maybe this 46,000. And above here, I'm super bullish. Below here, I'm just neutral. Below here, below this Below this 40,000, I'm pretty bearish. Okay, guys, that was your alpha, and stay safe. Happy trading.